Religion and politics. Should our vote be influenced by the religious affiliation of a politician? Does one's religion really matter? Greetings, this is Dale Brown. It has been said that you are what you believe. Most of the world's population has some kind of religious belief. If that is true, it would be to our advantage to understand a bit of how this might play out in the world of politics and how it affects us. Whether we have a religious view or not, we are still living in a religiously charged environment, regardless of how much we might try to deny it. Here are some thoughts to consider. How does a person's religious worldview affect our decision-making process? Can we afford to live and let live in view of the fact that the goal of some religions is to dominate other religions? How dogmatic is the politician's convictions in his view of his religion? Does the politician actually practice his religion, or is it merely lip service for the sake of politics? And if one has no belief in a supreme being, how might that affect his decisions and his view of those religious folks he governs that do have a religious conviction? Suppose the politician holds the view that all religions are basically the same or lead to the same place or goal. Wouldn't that be a utopian fantasy based on lack of knowledge of the subject of religion? In America, we have a pluralistic society which at one time was mostly Judeo-Christian at its root. Today, however, we have many offshoots of this root stock. Some fall into the category of what many theologians consider cults, such as the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, the witnesses usually don't enter into much political debate, however, because they have the belief that the whole realm of politics and military are part of a satanic scheme which has no part in God's kingdom. They are quite happy to enjoy the benefits of living in our country, however. The Mormons, on the other hand, have become major players in the political scene, with many members holding positions in key offices. There have been dozens of Mormon congressmen and numerous senators and governors. It was clear in the early days of Mormonism what was thought of their prophet Joseph Smith and his new contradictory religion, for he and his followers were driven out of New York and eventually he was killed in Nauvoo, Illinois. Today, however, it's not politically correct to point out the obvious heretical problems with the religion, so please don't confuse us with the facts. Mormons' fascination for the U.S. founders and the Constitution is sometimes attributed to their prophet, who claimed that their church would one day save the country from doom. This popular prophecy of Smith's is explained in the Encyclopedia of Mormonism. This important oral tradition, deriving from a statement attributed to Joseph Smith, according to which the Constitution would, quote, hang by a thread and be rescued, if at all, only with the help of the saints. Of course, that's the Latter-day Saints it's referring to. Then church president John Taylor seemed to go further when he prophesied, quote, when the people shall have torn to shreds the Constitution of the United States, the elders of Israel will be found holding it up to the nations of the earth and proclaiming liberty and equal rights to all men. To defend the principles of the Constitution under circumstances where the iniquity or moral decay of the people has torn it to shreds might well require wisdom at least equal to that of the men raised up to found it. In particular, it would require great insight into the relationship between freedom and virtue in a political embodiment of moral agency. Now that's the Encyclopedia of Mormonism, Volume 1, 1992. Now, both Mormonism and Islam rewrite the gospel story and have dreamed up a different Jesus. Both have a history of polygamy, have religious revelations of sex and heaven, And though their prophets performed no miracles, their holy books are unquestioned by their followers. In the West, it was not until 9/11 that Islam was considered to be a concern or something to be understood, even though 1/5 of the world's population adheres to Muhammad's version of religion. On Muhammad's deathbed, it is claimed that he envisioned driving all Jews, Christians, and polytheists from Arabia, a task that was being undertaken by his general, Osama bin Zayd bin Haritha. Now, if a politician cannot see the error of these problematic religious systems, why would we want them making decisions that affect the whole of our society? It would be one thing if they could be honest about their religion and could take criticism, but many go to great lengths to rewrite history and cover up what their so-called prophets have done and taught. So how does our religious view influence how we look at Israel in the Middle East? It was a twisted 4th century Augustinian replacement theology that came to us through the Catholic Church and many of the reformers that bred much of the anti-Semitism which paved the way for Hitler's Third Reich. Hitler's political views were a mixed bag of occultism and astrology with a Hindu symbol for a logo. His hatred for the Jews fit well with some of his Muslim allies. By elevating a man with such twisted logic, a whole society reaped the fruit of his beliefs. When one has no fear of God or judgment of sin, a human standard becomes the measuring tool, and how perverted man's standards can become. Well, suppose a person's religion is voodoo. In Haiti, the local mayor might also be a witch doctor who could do a spirited dance for you, but is that going to solve any problems? The fruit of voodoo is evident in Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, where it is conveniently mixed with Catholic tradition. So even Christianity, if it is corrupted by pagan practices, presents an ointment contaminated with flies, which illustrates the fact that many accusations against Christianity are based not on what is in the Bible, but on perversions that various traditions have taught or allowed. Okay, so voodoo may be an extreme example, but we have many in Western society that believe equally bizarre things, which follow no rational line of reasoning, which should give us plenty of reason to question one's ability to make critical decisions in everyday political events. While God is a just God, the Christian message is one of grace, forgiveness, and mercy. The idea of sacrificing oneself and loving your neighbors certainly should not be considered a negative thing. Jesus said, "Greater love has no one than this, that one lay down his life for his friends." So regardless of who ends up as our leaders, the Bible is clear in its teaching to respect and pray for all who are in authority, for God is able to use even the Nebuchadnezzars of the world for his divine purpose. Apostle Paul gave this instruction to Timothy as a young pastor, while he himself had been abused and led about in chains by the Roman authorities, who were not exactly friendly to Jews or the followers of this new Messiah, Jesus, who had been hung on a cross in Jerusalem.